Good morning and welcome to UPN Focus. I'm your host, Milt Thompson. Today we're going to bring the world back to Indianapolis as we have grown accustomed to doing around here. Not only do we do it very, very well, we always seem to do it better. And what am I talking about this time? We're talking about the World Police and Fire Games coming here in 2001. We're going to talk with our chairperson, Danny Overley. Danny, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much for having us, Milt.
And Gloria Riggs, my good friend Gloria. We go way back in the organization of special events. You are the special projects director for the Police and Fire Games that will be coming here in 2001. What are the Police and Fire Games?
It's an exciting event that we're so proud that Indianapolis is going to host next year. It's a competition of police officers and firefighters from around the world that will be in Indianapolis for about an 8-day period, competing in 70 different sports throughout about 4,400 square miles of the state of Indiana we'll be utilizing. As I said, there's 70 sports. We're expecting over 10,000 police officers and firefighters that will be here to compete.
Contrast that number of athletes, Gloria, to back, say, the Pan American Games or the Sports Festival.
Yeah, this is twice as big as the Pan American Games, and Indianapolis, you and I both know, thought that was the biggest thing we were ever going to see. But it's twice as many athletes from twice as many countries and more than twice as many sports. It's different, though, because the events are non-ticketed, except for the opening ceremonies. The athletes are here on their own dollar. They come on vacation, they bring their family with them, they pay their own registration fees. They're here because they really want to be here and because this is the camaraderie of the event is just something they all look forward to.
When you say athletes, in most parlance, we say those are police officers or those are firemen. Yeah, certainly there's some level of fitness that's required by them, but we're not just talking about your average garden variety police officer, are we?
No, we're going to have a wide variety of athletic abilities that'll be here. I mean, you will have some athletes that are here that just do it on the weekend, but it'll go all the way up to, we're very proud that this week during the Olympics that 2 police officers from South Africa are competing in the Olympics in Australia, and then they'll be in Indianapolis next June to compete for the World Police and Fire Games. So we have a wide variety of athletes that come in. What we really think is important about this event, Indianapolis, as you know, does very good in putting on sporting events. We think this event is different because it really showcases the public safety officers who are on the day-to-day basis out protecting our citizens and putting their lives on the line, and then coming here to be able to showcase their fitness and how they're fit and ready to serve their communities.
Why a Police and Fire Games, and then why a World Police and Fire Games?
I think that the reason for the Police and Fire Games, especially in North America, that we have an excellent working relationship. That's not always the case when you get into our foreign brothers and sisters around the world, that sometimes those relationships are not as good as they should be. So it was created to help bridge some of those relationship considerations. Also, why the World Games? I think that you have a lot of domestic sporting events for police and firefighters. This is an opportunity for us as police officers and firefighters to interact with our fellow brothers and sisters around the world. Because we've found that even though we speak different languages, even though we wear different uniforms, even though we have different equipment, that our jobs are all the same, and it's protecting citizens, and it's interacting with the communities. And you learn so much when you're interacting on an international level.
Well, we are on an international level, so why Indianapolis? Why would Indianapolis be a chosen site? And tell us maybe some history of where the other sites have been and what we did to get them.
Sure, and that's what's exciting for us, is that we are in a world class venue. The games in '95 were held in Melbourne, Australia.
Former Olympic venue.
Absolutely. '97 in Calgary.
Another former Olympic venue.
And just last year we were in Stockholm, Sweden, which is another Olympic.
Another former Olympic venue.
Following us, in 2003, it goes to Barcelona, Spain.
Another Olympic venue.
And then in 2005.
Is there something prophetic about that? I think I know some of our city fathers. I'm not sure we're going to go after Olympic Games, but clearly we're talking about a venue that's held in high regard around the world because it has hosted significant world-class multi-sport events in the past.
Right, and that's why we're excited in Indianapolis, is what brought the games here. It was Hoosier Hospitality of the the federation who owns the event when they were here. It was the cooperation between police and fire and the community. But equally as important was the venues that were here, that we have world-class venues. And they know that they're going to bring their competitors or athletes into a situation where they're competing on places where there's been world records broken. And we really are very proud. As Gloria knows, many of the other host cities have had to do some bricks and mortars to get their venues ready. And fortunately, we didn't. I mean, our venues are ready to go. They just need to be, the gates opened and ready to move.
So clearly, this showcases safety department members around the globe, but it also focuses on local venues. But the hospitality industry, the economic impact, is an economic development tool, and that's how cities have used it in the past, and why we were interested?
Oh, it really was a real interesting. I mean, when we've been working on this since 1991, so it'll be 10 years in the making that we've been looking at this event and trying to be successful. But it does have a huge economic impact. Calgary reported over $40 million economic impact to their community when the games were there. The athletes come, as Gloria will be able to tell you, they'll come a week or 2 weeks out and be able to go to the venues and practice, and they stay in our hotels. They eat in our restaurants. So it's very good for our community. But what's even better than the dollars they spend, it's allowing our community, the state of Indiana, to be able to see these police officers and firefighters as real people, not just someone who wears a uniform and responds to their emergencies.
Well, what was the bidding process? What did we have to do in order to persuade some governing body, someplace, that they needed to have their world championships here?
Well, we worked on that for about 4 years on the bid, and it is actual formal bid like you would expect for the Olympics, and then we had site inspections where they were here. We bid against some very romantic cities in Europe and around the world. And again, what made it successful here was that every time they came back to see, we had a consistency in our organizing committee, we had consistency in our public safety, and we had a consistency in the community relationships that we had here. So all of those things together said Indianapolis is the place where it needs to be. When I mention the cities who have hosted, you'll see that it's been a long time since it's been to the United States, and it'll be a long time again before it comes here. There's many cities that could have attracted this event and tried to attract this event. Indianapolis is where the people who own the event said, that's where we want to be, that's where we want to showcase the U.S.
Well, as we well know, behind the scenes, what we are accustomed to seeing when the ceremonies begin, and you have the curtains open, and you have the athletes ready to perform, and the excitement that goes on, that clearly something goes on well in advance of the raising of the curtain for all that to happen. That requires a significant, I believe, organizing event. Gloria, you've had a lot of experience in organizing events. Tell us about the beginnings of this organization that is beginning to take root.
I came on board in 1997, early 1997, with Sandy Knapp, who was the former president of Indiana Sports Corporation. And Sandy and I, with the assistance of public safety, put together the organizational structure of the games. I wish we had an organizing chart that we could throw up there.
I bet you haven't committed to memory.
Because we have represented, of course, the governor and the mayor and the superintendent of state police and the chief of police and all the way down the line, as well as all of the Indianapolis organizations of Indianapolis Convention and Visitors Association, Indiana Sports Corporation, IDI, Gypsy, all the way down the line. And everyone is there by position, not by person. And I just want to throw out, while we're into this, we went after this event in Mayor Goldsmith's administration with the help of the Indianapolis Convention and Visitors Association. We've had a change of administration since then. We have not lost a beat. And I think this has really impressed the Federation and the organizing people, because they came to town, we were total change of administration, and everyone was still behind it.
It's not political. It's an economic development tool that is going to work for our community, and we're going to talk about that organizing effort right after these important words. And welcome back to UPN Focus. We're talking about the 2001 World Police and Fire Games with Danny Overley, their chair, and with Gloria Riggs, who is the Special Projects Manager. And before we left our last segment, we were talking about this organizing effort that is significant and been going on for several years now prior to the event. Tell us about that organization, how it's like other organizations, and then how it's distinct from other organizations with perhaps who are familiar.
The organizational chart was patterned much after the Pan American Games, so far as the structure of the divisions that we chose. But the main difference is, in every instance, we have co-chairmen, one being from the corporate community or the civic community at large, and one being from public safety. For instance, corporate development. Jerry Semler, CEO of AUL, is chaired with what was then the assistant fire chief, and they are working together on that. And we've tried to carry that all the way down the line to every sports commissioner, every committee that we have. And it's really been good, and it's been very beneficial, I think, on both sides of the street as we learn to work together, learn how we work differently in the ways that are the same. I mean, you and I are used to sitting around and planning everything and writing all these papers, and public safety reacts to emergencies.
So they're much more reactive.
They're much more reactive than we are, and it's really been good.
So some learnings from both sides. A little
learning
bit of corporate
both
learning.
ways.
It's been a great asset because, as Gloria said, we put now police officers and firefighters sitting in boardrooms with CEOs and helping to plan this event. And it's given a different respect from the public safety side to our CEOs and to our corporate community, because now they understand what's happening in those buildings when they're directing traffic, when they're getting them in their meetings and out of their meetings. And vice versa, I think it's been very good for our corporate community to see how police and fire react. We have corporate leaders now that are riding with police officers, going into firehouses, meeting in firehouses. I believe that the games will be much more than just the event in 2001, that afterwards those relationships will be built that will help us to move through maybe more trying times that this community may be forced with in the future. If you have a friend in public safety or a friend in the corporate community, you're going to call if you have a problem. You're just not going to call 911 and expect a response. So it's a relationship building.
I flash back 10, 15 years ago, early middle 80s, when our community was getting prepared for the Pan American Games that came in '87, and we kind of looked at ourselves and said, God, we're pretty homogeneous. We were certainly not the bastion of diversity in terms of an international makeup of ethnic diversity. A lot's changed in the last 10, 15 years. We are a much more diverse community, but I can't help but believe that we didn't have a lot of learnings about other people in that period of time that aids you in your preparation to really open up Indianapolis as the door to the world. What kind of preparations are going on as we're looking at the cultural differences, the ethnic differences, the language differences, all those things that go along with it, the different foods that people eat? How are we preparing our community to be most receptive and hospitable under those circumstances?
Well, and that'll be a great area for Gloria, because one of her areas is protocol. And protocol deals not only with our VIPs that'll be here and the treatment we'll have with them and the security issues, but also the protocols that different countries bring here and different ethnic groups. So she's done a great job, and Gloria, I'd really be excited if you talk about the organization you've put together within the Games.
Protocol it's just a wonderful division of very knowledgeable people, both from public safety. It's chaired by Susan Brooks, who was deputy mayor with Goldsmith, is now with Eismeller. And again, that shows how the relationships have continued through Bart and Goldsmith. I think I want to back up and say as well that we're working with Indiana Sports Corporation. I think a lot of the people may not be aware of everything that's coming up after 2001, but as you know, 2002's World Basketball,
was coming
three's
to town.
Gymnastics, and four's swimming.
Keeping on with the
Final
world
Four
flavor. Right.
So a lot of the people that we have are really experienced event people, and they will move on after the World Police and Fire Games. Connie Israel, who is our president, is just an excellent event
Very
person.
experienced, been around Olympics and Pan Am
extremely
Games and all the others.
Experienced to take care of the sports in. What our committee is trying to do, along with community programs, Janet Mustin's group, is form partnerships within this city that are going to be here after the World Police and Fire Games have gone. Partnerships with United Way agencies, where we'll be doing programs in schools. We have a hardcore group of public safety people that will go on a minute's notice. They'll do an after-school program. We want these things to continue through Boys and Girls Clubs and groups like that after we're gone. We're partnering with the Children's Museum. I'm not really answering your question, but I do want to talk about these partnerships, which will lead on into
that really is answering the question, because partnerships with people around the world requires an extra effort.
Right.
Unless you know someone, you're not going to get to continue to know them.
And we're working with International School. We're working with Forest Glen School, which has an international program. We're working with the Children's Museum. Indigo is on board to do our transportation, which, as you know, is a little bit of an issue and a problem in Indianapolis for 10,000 athletes. One of the things that I think is really unique is we formed partnerships with law firms who are doing all of our legal work for us as a donation to the games. I'm working through Frank Short with the Italian group that's here. I've learned lots of things about our city. When Taiwan Taipei was here, I learned that they're a sister city. And there was a whole group here that took our visitors out with them that evening and took them to dinner. We're working with the Spanish community, which has a wonderful place since the Pan Am Games. They're much more prevalent. The speech is there. We've already had, how many countries, Danny? 10, 12 countries?
Visit?
Come
Yes.
to visit.
Yes.
Just to see our place. One of them liked us so well they've already been back a second time.
This is much more than a sporting event.
It absolutely
If
is.
all we do is put out another sporting event, we failed. Yes, the sporting event is important to everyone, but what this can bring to this community and mean to this community is the reason I'm involved.
70 sports. I can't think of 70 sports, and I'm involved in the sports business every day of the week. Now, what are some of the interesting sports that perhaps we couch potatoes don't know very much about?
I mean, you would expect to have your traditional Olympic, Summer Olympic sports that you see on TV that's going on at this time in Australia. We also incorporate some Winter Olympic sports. We have ice hockey, which is a huge event in the World Police Fire Games. But we have some industry-specific sports that are really fun for the community to see because it really does test the fitness of our police officers and firefighters. We have a muster competition, which is an old-fashioned bucket brigade where if you remember back in the Chicago fire where they were passing the buckets back and forth and putting out the fires. We have a police service dog event where we test the skills of the police service dogs with their handlers. We have a SWAT event where we test the agility of our SWAT officers to be able to move throughout dangerous situations. So there's a lot of really industry-specific sports that we add on to that. But then there's casual sports that would come in. Golf is a large event for us that will be competing right here at the Motor Speedway is one of our major venues for golf. We have 3 golf courses. That's one. So you'll see a lot of sports that we're used to seeing, but a lot of casual sports and a lot of industry-specific sports. So there's something for everyone. I mean, there's the ability for everyone in our community. And when I talk the community, this is bigger than Indianapolis. I mean, the governor has been on a tremendous amount of support for us. And as I say, we're using 4,400 square miles of Indiana. So we're going way outside of the boundaries of Marion County to make sure this is successful.
Well, the World Police and Fire Games, another opportunity for us to showcase not only the hospitality, but how far we really have come with respect to our cultural diversity right here in our community. We'll talk more about that right after these important words. And welcome back to UPN Focus. I'm with my good friends Gloria Riggs and Danny Overley from the 2001 World Police and Fire Games. We've talked about the size and scope of the organization that's essential, as well as the number of athletes, over 10,000, that'll be traveling, 70 different sports from around the world. They're all going to come to Indianapolis with a massive organizational effort that's been going on for several years already. 9 actually, when we're thinking about where this was a part of the brainchild of safety department members in our community, bringing it to the corporate community to get in partnership. But it's going to take a lot more people to actually pull this off. Is that right, Danny? Tell us about the volunteer requirements and needs as we look forward to these games.
We have looked at, and we've done a great job, I think, of being able to quantify the number of volunteers we need using the Pan Am model. We have about 2,000 volunteers actively working on the games right now. They're augmented by a full-time staff of 30 very dedicated employees that are putting the games on. But we're going to need well over 5,000 volunteers to make this work. So we're still in the process of soliciting well over 3,000 volunteers. And I think it's an opportunity for the community to be involved. I mean, to really feel ownership into something that's going to leave a legacy in this community for years and years to come. So. And volunteers come from all walks of life. I mean, we have opportunities that I didn't even know were available to put on in a multi-sporting event because we haven't had that many here. But I know, Gloria, you could just talk about some of the opportunities we have for everyone in our community.
Yeah, this is where I think our community is really strong, is when you start talking about the volunteer force and the caliber of people that work for us, and that's how we make up for our mountains and oceans that they have other places. But if you have a particular sport that you love and you want to work with that, we have 70 of those for you to choose from that you could work at any venue and about any job you want to do. Even if you never heard of the sport before, we'll teach you. There's obviously the usual wonderful hospitality opportunities that Indianapolis does so well. At the airport and the hotels, we have 27 properties where we will be housing our athletes. They make their own reservations, pay their own money, but we have tried to set up a community that they will enjoy and can be in the same proximity. We have information booths, we have drivers, we have the whole 9 yards of anything that
almost
you can
any
think
activity
of.
that you can think of to do.
That you would want to do at any sport.
And if you want to do that, what number do you call, Gloria?
327-2001. And we will get a volunteer form out to you and welcome you in. And I think they would really love working on it. I mean, I really got hooked when I saw this in Calgary. I mean, just the people involved.
I know
really fun.
People are going to question. Says I'm going to work and be a volunteer, but don't my tax dollars go to support this activity?
Well, we do have support. We've had great support from the local community and from the state community and the federal community, but also we've had a lot of corporate dollars that's come in to help this. We need the volunteers because that's what Indianapolis is about. We could never even have thought about bidding on this if we were going to pay people to actually to put the games on. And that's why, you know, I've been a volunteer for 9 years, and it's been very rewarding. So the tax dollars do help, but we couldn't even start to quantify the dollars of the volunteers that have already helped us get to where we are.
And tell us the dates.
June 8th to June 16th.
June 8th to June 16th.
2001.
Remember that calendar event just as you watch these items on this week's calendar.
Here are some events in our area for you to focus on. The Ghosts and Goblins will be out in force at Fright Mansion Haunted House located in the Southport Shelter House and Park. Fright Manor begins this Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. It's scary and isn't recommended for kids under the age of 6. Admission is $8 and proceeds benefit the Southport Children's Playground Fund. And enjoy the Fall Creek Festival on October 7th. There will be craft booths, cloggers, music, and a cruise in with classic cars. Come and enjoy food and festivities of the Fall Creek Festival in Dietrich Park in downtown Middletown. And you can visit any Frank's Nursery and Crafts for the 6th annual pumpkin painting party. You'll be treated to pails of paints and a personal pumpkin to decorate. Participants and their families will be treated to cider, old-fashioned donuts, and other Halloween treats. Come paint a pumpkin at Frank's Nursery and Crafts on October 8th from noon to 3 p.m. We'd like to hear from you. Send your event information 3 weeks in advance to be part of the UPN 23 community calendar.
Thank you, Danny Overley, Gloria Riggs, the Police and Fire Games 2001. We'll see you right back here on UPN Focus this time next week.